My grandmother taught me to read frost the way other people read instrument panels. She said the step would tell you everything if you let it, and that a rider who trusted his eyes over a screen would last longer out here than one who didn't. I never understood why a world that could put a warship in geosynchronous orbit also insisted on training riders to track game and weather on horseback through the permafrost. I learned the discipline a long time before I learned the reason for it. The reason came on a gray morning, 33,000 years after the Corvain breach, when Pharaoh's ears went flat and the snow stopped sounding right under his hooves. I'd ridden the Hallow Steppe on the same rotation for 11 years. It's not much to look at, a flat gray monument field at the edge of consolidated territory, scattered with low stone markers nobody under 60 bothers to read anymore. Most people in the cities don't know what happened here. They know there was a war once, a long time ago, and that we won it, and that's as far as the history goes for them. For us, the Greywatch riders, the breach isn't history, it's a posted duty. I saw the first scout craft come down through high cloud just after dawn, 3 of them, sleek and low and quiet, in a way that told me they'd built for stealth rather than for show. I didn't reach for a radio. I didn't trip any beacon. I sat Pharaoh on the ridge and watched. Because that's the whole job. And because anything I carried that drew power would have lit up on their instruments like a flare. They didn't know that. That was the point. I watched them set down at the edge of the old field and fan out on foot, scanning. Big, armored, methodical. Not explorers, not diplomats. Soldiers sent to confirm a kill before the main force commits to it. I'd read the old reports. The Ossuran Dominion doesn't send its war fleet anywhere on faith. It sends a vanguard first, to make certain the grave is still a grave. 33,000 years ago, this steppe was where the first ones learned it wasn't. The accounts say the Dominion came expecting a green, unguarded world, and Earth answered with everything it had, which at the time was not very much. We won that fight ugly and barely, and it cost the kind of numbers that don't get spoken about casually even now. What every account agrees on is the part that mattered. The people who survived it understood, clearly, that having driven the Dominion off once did not mean they wouldn't come back better prepared. So instead of celebrating, they got to work, and they kept at it for longer than most civilizations bother to remember their own founding. That's the whole secret of the Greywatch line. We never believed we'd won. We believed we'd been given time. I watched the Vanguard scanning teams sweep the field for almost 2 hours and find exactly what they expected to find. Nothing. No power signatures, no comm traffic, no engines, no active sensors, no warm electronics anywhere on the old battlefield because there weren't any to find. Just snow, stone markers, and, eventually, a man on a horse, which their instruments would have read as background fauna if they registered him at all. I want to be honest about what I felt watching them work. Not hatred, not even much fear. Mostly I thought about my grandmother, and her grandmother before her, riding this same boundary on the same understanding, that the day might come in any one of their lifetimes, or in none of them, and that the job was to be ready, regardless of which. She used to say the steppe was the most patient liar on the planet. It told the Dominion exactly what they wanted to hear. Nothing here, nothing left. For 2 hours, I watched their scan teams work the field in a grid, the way you'd expect trained soldiers to work it. Methodical, patient, thorough. They ran ground-penetrating sweeps over the stone markers and read them as geology. They walked within 30 meters of a buried relay and logged it as mineral deposit. At one point, the lead scout knelt and brushed snow off a marker stone with his glove, the way you'd clear a headstone, and for a second I thought he might actually read the name carved into it. He didn't. He moved on. Watching him, I didn't think he was being careless. I think his orders had told him what this field was going to be before he ever set foot on it, and nothing he found here was going to be allowed to contradict that. They crossed the boundary markers a little after 10 that morning. I'd like to say it was dramatic. It wasn't, not from where I sat. The ground didn't open up the way the old dramatizations show it. The permafrost just answered. Sensor lattices that had drawn no power in decades, because they were never meant to draw power, until triggered came alive in a slow ripple under the snow, marker by buried marker, the way a held breath finally lets go. Plating that had looked like old stone for 3 centuries folded back. The Grey Watch array wasn't one structure. It was hundreds of small ones, dormant the whole time, specifically so nothing would ever register on a scan, woven into a field that looked, for 33,000 years, like exactly what it was supposed to look like. A grave nobody had bothered to maintain. It wasn't a grave, it was a trigger. I won't describe the next 11 minutes in detail, because I don't think the detail is the point, and because some of it isn't mine to tell. What matters is that it was fast, and it was final, and it was almost entirely without anyone on our side firing a single round by hand. The array did what it was built to do. The Vanguard's 3 craft were disabled before their crews finished registering what had happened to the ground beneath them. I watched armored soldiers who had walked onto this field, certain they were inspecting a corpse, stop, and look up, and understand. All at once, the way you understand a fall has already happened before you've finished falling. That the world they'd come to confirm was dead had simply been waiting. There were 19 left standing when it was done, disarmed, contained, and very still. The order that came down the line wasn't to finish it. It was to ask me, specifically, because I was the rider who'd watched the whole thing from the ridge and had the clearest read on what they'd actually done versus what they'd come intending to do, whether I thought any of them deserved to go home and report what they'd seen. That's the part nobody tells you about being ready for 33,000 years. The hard moment isn't the fight. The fight took 11 minutes, and most of it wasn't even mine. The hard moment is standing over 19 soldiers who came here to scout a slaughter and deciding, on your own authority, whether mercy serves the peace better than silence would. I thought about it longer than 11 minutes. In the end, I told them to let 6 go. The 6 lowest ranked, the ones least likely to have anything to lose by telling the truth plainly when they got home. Not out of pity, out of arithmetic. A dominion that sends its next fleet believing Earth is still a grave, gets every one of its soldiers killed for nothing, and gets some unknown number of hours killed proving it again. A dominion that hears, from its own people, in its own words, exactly what is waiting here, might decide the math doesn't favor a second attempt. Mercy, done right, isn't softness, it's the most efficient warning we had left to send. We didn't write anything on their hulls. We didn't make them watch anything staged for effect. We gave them back their disabled craft, enough power to limp home, and nothing else, and let them carry the only message that would actually land. That the field had been a lie they walked through for 2 hours, that the lie had cost them 3 vessels and 13 soldiers, and that the people who built it had known they were coming for longer than the Dominion had existed in its current form. I rode back across the Hallow Steppe that evening, past the stone markers I'd ridden past 10,000 times without really seeing them, and for the first time in 11 years, I stopped at one and read the name on it. I don't know why that one. I didn't recognize it. I just stood there with Pharaoh breathing steam into the cold and thought about how many generations had ridden this exact line, certain of nothing, except that the day might come, and that they had to be the ones ready for it, whether or not they lived to see it land. We didn't win today because we were stronger in the moment it mattered. We won because nobody in 330 centuries ever let themselves believe the moment was over. I still ride the rotation. I still don't carry anything that draws power. The step still looks to anyone scanning it from orbit exactly like what it's pretending to be. That's not an accident. That's the whole point.